But, we had this poor little 6-year-old girl who, despite the good advice of mom and peers, was not going off to school. And, what happened next?
Well, she decided to stay home. And I left her alone. Other than I spent a lot of time with her because we liked each other, which was lucky. And she loved talking about the history of science. It was just, I couldn't believe how lucky I was, because I could talk about the history of science with anybody and I would be happy. It would just, I think what most people, it's like porn to me or something, I guess, for the average person. But anyway, she developed the following program herself. No input from me whatsoever on this particular part of it. She would get up around 5 a.m, go down and practice piano for 2 hours. And then I would hear her head back upstairs because I was always up really early because of the time difference. I was dealing in markets in the Northern Hemisphere. And then about 2.5 hours later, she'd come down for breakfast and she'd disappear back in her room. And so one day I said, Laura, what's the deal here? She said, well, here's the thing, Dad. I go down to practice piano for 2 hours just to get it out of the way because I love it, but I'm not, it's not my principal thing, but I want to be able to do it. And then I go back upstairs and do math for 2 or 3 hours. I come down and eat breakfast. And then I go back upstairs and do a lot of the reading from the books that she got for me. And then about 1 o'clock, I'm done and I have the rest of the day to myself. I had thought, she figured it out. There came a point when she came to me and said, Dad, I need a laboratory. And she was 11 at the time, either 10 or 11, somewhere around there. And this is the difference between her and most other kids. I said, I'll try to make a lab, but I ain't the best, DIY guy in the world. So we went and her mother, my then wife, said, you're not making a lab in this house. Maybe down in the basement, but it was hopeless. Without going into all the gory details, within a year, she had gotten Cynthia Kenyon, a world-renowned professor in the field that she was interested in, to invite her into her lab in San Francisco, which was a kind of a problem because we were in New Zealand. But, I liked San Francisco was still okay place then. So I didn't mind going back, especially for that reason. And she gave a talk in Tallinn, Estonia when she was 18. And she said, she was urging kids to just get out and do it. You just got to take a risk. You got to push yourself out beyond the boundary and just get into it. And she described how she had done that. And she said, one of the things my dad told me, because it was, when I dropped her off the first day in the lab, I thought there's no program here. She's just going to be a kid with all these grad students around who are, mostly, a grad student in biology ain't going to be too hip or too hooked into, personal psychology, right? So they're not going to know what to do with her. And so when she got out of the car, for some reason, it was one of those moments when you figure out exactly the right thing to say. It's one of the only moments in my life. And I turned to her and I said, look, kiddo, here's the deal. What you want to do, I'm suggesting, is by the time you leave that lab around, early evening, everybody in that lab was glad you were there. If you do that, you'll be fine. And she said, it just worked. Because all I did was just go around trying to help everybody without being obnoxious, Mm-hmm. And then one night I came up into, her mother came in all upset about things, said, Laura's still up, it's 2 a.m. and she's got a something, a presentation or something tomorrow in the lab. And I went, okay, I'll go up and talk to her. So I went up to Laura's room, knocked on the door, went in, and I said, what's going on, kid? Why you got to get up at 6 and you know, I got to drive you to the lab. She said, well, Cynthia put me into the rotation of grad students presenting papers. So I'm presenting my first paper. It was like, okay. And so she was just hustling around, you know, trying to get the paper together. And she ended up presenting 3 papers at 3 different times in the rotation. She's 13, 12 and 13. I don't know.